Happy Women's Day to all the women out there. Well, achieving an equal world in the context of COVID-19 is a different challenge. COVID-19 has had devastating effects on the world. Even the superpowers of this world are grappling with the impact of COVID-19. But wherever you go, women and girls are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. We have lost strides or steps that we had achieved in gaining equality and emancipation, and this has been manifested through loss of livelihoods, unplanned pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, increased sexual gender-based violence. And again, I don't want to appear like this affects women alone. It affects women and men, but women being already vulnerable are disproportionately affected. So achieving an equal world in the context of COVID-19 is really going to be an uphill task. For us as women we cannot give up. The challenge is really an uphill one, but we rise up to the challenge to do our best to bridge the divide, bridge the gap in spite of COVID-19. During COVID-19, we saw an increase in the number of young people coming to access our services. As I said, we were serving 1.8 million people by now. In 2019, the number of youth accessing family planning through any of our channels was less than 15%, 14-15%, and it was always a hassle getting them through. What we observed during the period of COVID-19 is that the number of young people under the age of 20 coming for family planning went up. We served 18% young people. Whether this is because they were out of school or because they were now sexually active, because they lacked alternatives, is a different conversation. But for us, we are happy to see young people being bold and taking these services because, and I appreciate that it's a difficult conversation, being a parent myself, but they are children, they are young people who are sexually active, and that's it. So we have to, instead of hiding our head under the sand, go ahead on with the conversation. And also to be aware of the different contexts in which young people exist. In this country, there are 15-year-olds who are married. There are 16-year-olds who are married. There are 18-year-olds who are mothers of 2 and 3. So when you talk about young people accessing contraception, we need to have a global view of issues as opposed to just thinking my young girl at home in Kololo. And by the way, those two have their challenges because we tend to think that we are protecting them with high fences and big cars, and then we forget to protect them from social media and pornography. I see many of them hanging around at Acacia Mall, just ready to get pregnant anytime. So when it comes to family planning remains a controversial subject. The conversation is normalizing. The way it is now is not the way it was 20 years ago. Access to information is becoming liberal. And sometimes we think that Ugandans don't have access to internet and all, but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how someone would rather have a phone. It may not be a smartphone, it may be a small, but you'd be surprised how much you can do through sending information and helping people to choose for themselves what's best for their futures. For me, the king challenge in COVID-19 was limitation of access. So what COVID-19 did was, at the peak of it in March of 2020, the lockdowns. And as I said, the lockdowns are not in Uganda only, they were all over the place. So for a while there, for us as health workers, we couldn't move to go and provide services to women and girls who needed them. We went through a bit of advocacy with the Ministry of Health and local governments. And then family planning was gazetted as an essential service. So that barrier was removed so we could go to where the women are. But then also the women couldn't come to us. Remember, for a while taxis were grounded, and then there's a curfew, meaning the amount of time you're able to see them is limited. Then the costs of transportation went through the roof. So the women couldn't come to us for a long time. So that is limitation in access. When it comes to commodities, some of these things we provide for women, we import. So commodities would come and probably get stuck at a border somewhere because the border is locked down, and that manifests as a stock out of commodities in country and the whole works. So access was impeded from all directions, whether it's health workers going to women, women coming to health workers, commodities coming to women and girls. That was the biggest problem. Now, outside access, the demand increased. And that it is such a contradictory space to be in. You have limited access and yet the demand for services has gone up. Why? People are locked up at home, they're spending more time with their partners. Our children, the boys are out of schools, they're doing drugs, they're watching pornography. The girls, school is such an important safety net because it takes them out of exposure, it gives them a routine. School provides accountability. You ask, where is Namatovu? She's not seated at her desk. In the absence of school, you can't know where these girls are, so supervision is difficult.